The radical left's agendas are challenging American values. But conservatives like you haven't forgotten what this country was built on. My friends, the Heritage Foundation exists to make sure your voice is heard and to represent your values in the D.C. swamp. The Heritage Foundation stands for your values and won't give up the fight because they know you never will. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Interesting how you're not allowed to investigate Barack Obama as a former president, you know. Not allowed to subpoena him, not allowed to criminally examine him, bring him in front of a grand jury to see what he knew, when he knew it, with respect to the effort to overthrow the 2016 election and destroy the Trump presidency and to launch criminal investigations. Now, that's pretty precious, isn't it? Considering what they did to Donald Trump? No, it should be full steam ahead. I also hear one of the reporters talking about the Supreme Court decision on immunity, that it benefited President Trump, and so hence it now benefits Obama. Well, maybe he's reading a different opinion than I am, or these people are whispering in his ear, giving him a different advice. Yes, a president has immunity from his official acts. But if a president of the United States sought to advance a coup, to commit crimes of other sorts, they're not immune from that after they leave office. That's for sure. But in any event, a full-fledged investigation, criminal investigation, is absolutely warranted, despite the best efforts of some never-Trumpers with law degrees and left-wing Democrats and so forth with law degrees, trying to tell you that what's the big deal. We already knew the Russians tried to intervene in the election, but they failed, is the line that they use. That's not the point. That's not the point. The point was the allegation that Donald Trump worked with the Russians to steal the election from Hillary Clinton. That's the point. And the leaks that transpired as a result of that. Now we have documents out of the intelligence agencies that were released by Tulsi Gabbard. And we're told to move along. We're not going to move along. I want to get into that a little bit more thoroughly in the response from the Obama president's office. But the precedent that's been set here, of course, is that a former president can be criminally investigated. They came up with their phony claims against Donald Trump, and they spent years investigating him. Grand juries, indictments at the federal, state, and local level. Apparently, we don't have any attorneys general at the state level with the guts to do a damn thing, let alone at the local level. I'm just being honest. But before we get into all that, you know, this book on power, it's been distributed widely by the publisher to various press people, various hosts, various columnists. We'll see if they write something or say something, but it's interesting. I already saw one that pretty much was picking and choosing information that's in the book. That's always kind of troubling to me, bothersome to me. And this is an individual that would never actually interview me. So I discuss this stuff with you directly. Now, the reason I mention this book in the course of a radio show like this that's talking about current events and so forth, although we do history and philosophy and so much more here, is because this book relates to all aspects of human behavior, whether it's ancient, more modern history, whether it's current, whether it's in your individual lives, your familial lives, your job, your community, or the country generally. And every book I write really does have that kind of a reach, but this one especially. And so this book is broken down into a number of areas. And remember what I've said. The issue here to me is for people to start to think about liberty and tyranny, to think about private property rights and Marxism and Islamism and so forth and so on in the context of power. Power. And so the book is divided into several chapters, although not many. On power is the overarching first chapter, negative power and positive power. And tonight I want to talk about negative power because this affects what's going on right now. Tomorrow I'll talk about positive power, and I get into language, rights, and liberty as well. These are the key aspects of control or freedom, depending on where your head is. Us, we're on the freedom side. So what is negative power? I developed these categories so we can better analyze what power is and why it's so important. Again, we talk about liberty, but liberty in and of itself doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. If you don't have the ability to institute a system that recognizes the individual, free will, and so forth, and so, you don't have liberty. So the issue really is power. Power. Power comes first. Then you determine the extent to which you do or do not have liberty or tyranny or rights and so forth. As I researched this book, it's very interesting. Power is not the same thing as liberty. Power is not the same thing as rights or unalienable rights. Interesting. And yet they overlap. Power is not the same thing as little d democracy or little r republicanism, although they overlap. But as you can see from what I'm saying now, power is at the core of all of it. Liberty, tyranny, representative government, fascism, Marxism, Islamism, you name it. And this is why an honest and thorough investigation of that term and the force of that term is necessary. So when we think of things, we start to think of them, in my view, in a different way. This is how the Marxists, the Islamists, the fascists, or even the Democrats pushing authoritarian democracy, this is how they get away with what they get away with. Because we'll beat our chests about liberty, that's not free, that's not representative government, but which is obviously the outcome, the end game. But if we're not going to debate power and confront this issue of power when it is being used against us, and embrace it and nurture it when it's being used on our behalf, well, we can talk about liberty and democracy all we want. It won't matter. So what I'm going to do here is, it's a thumbnail sketch. Obviously, the book is much more comprehensive and thorough, but for our purposes here, so what's negative power? It's coercion. It's control. It's force. It's the antithesis of what is necessary for individual liberty, consensual and representative government, a civil society. It involves language control, thought control, manipulation, new words invented by the state, by the ruling class to advance their cause, changing the meaning of old words for the same reason. They're not interested in intellectual engagement or debate or challenges. Propaganda. Repetition. Controlled communication. They want conformity, obedience, regurgitation. You know, I write in the book, this is what wokeism has been about. And somebody picked up on this today and used it right out of the book. But that's okay. Wokeism. Wokeism is a new authoritarian tool. It's a new authoritarian tool. You have to say certain things, say them in a certain way. You can't distinguish between men and women. You've got to use pronouns. The whole kit and caboodle of wokeism. You get a scarlet letter. It can affect your career. It can destroy your reputation if you don't fall in line. Wokeism is a new form of Marxism, fascism, totalitarianism, authoritarian democracy. That's what wokeism is. It's just a new way of control, controlling thought, controlling behavior, controlling outcomes. All of this is in the book. So what's the goal? The goal is to create followers, adherents, fanatics. And anybody who steps out of line, well, they're to be diminished, denuded, smeared. Negative power is unmoored from the Bible. That teaches us that the sovereign is God and that we, his people, his children, when it comes to earthly governance, we're the sovereign over our futures here on earth. Not the ruling class, not a handful of individuals. We are the people with certain constraints and restraints. That's what your declaration says for a reason. Negative power rejects this basic biblical teaching. It rejects Reformation. It rejects the Enlightenment. It rejects people like John Locke and Montesquieu, who talk about the distribution of power, power versus power. Because the Marxist communists, the Islamists, the authoritarians, they want the centralization of power, as I indicated earlier. So this whole idea of divided power, which is central to our republic, which is really the key to our Constitution, which is the key to limiting authoritarianism, this is rejected by those who embrace negative power, like the Democrat Party, but I'll deal with that later. What else? The dehumanization of the person. You're not really a human being. You're part of a collective. You're part of a collective. This is why people do not, on that side, the negative power side, do not or are not offended when you talk about the tens of thousands of women who were sold into sex slavery and the missing 325,000 unaccompanied minors. They're not viewed as individual human beings. They're not viewed as individual human beings. It's just a mass, a mob. And the ends justify the means. So you have dehumanization and the re-engineering of the individual. The individual, as Marx points out, but he's not alone, this whole idea of individualism must be destroyed. It's the collective. It's the commune. It's the ruling class. It's the centralization that is to be embraced. You can't have that if you have individuals who are off on their own, motivated by their own wants and their own needs and just their own desires. You can't have that. You exist for, under negative power, you exist for, and at the behest of, those who exercise negative power. You exist for Washington, D.C. You exist for the swamp. You exist for the bureaucracy. You exist for the politicians. You exist for the health care program or the Social Security program. You exist for that. You don't exist for your own well-being. Again, this is a new way of thinking that's very, very important when we listen to people like Mamdani or Tlaib or AOC or Bernie Sanders. And the reason I felt this book is so important, the reason I'm pressing this issue, is because I don't think we effectively counter these people. We rub our hands about how crazy they are and how wrong they are and their ideology doesn't work. But why doesn't it work? Why doesn't it work? And what's at stake? They talk about affordability, but your very existence, your lifestyle, is at stake when they're talking about affordability. Now, we can address affordability. That's not complicated. But my whole purpose here, my whole purpose in this book, my whole purpose in the presentation, and the media effort that I'm going to make connected to the book, here, TV, Blaze, interviews galore, is so we can start perceiving and thinking differently and talking differently about the problem. When we come back, I want to talk to you again as I continue on this chapter. It's chapter 2, negative power. We'll pursue it a little bit further. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
In the last few weeks, some ICE agents have been ambushed, doxxed, received death threats. All this is on top of dealing with pushback from liberals in sanctuary cities. These ICE agents deserve a lot better. Americans like you across the country support the work they're doing, but they need to hear your voice. The Heritage Foundation has created a survey to gauge America's support of ICE agents, and they need your participation. So please go to heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/LEVIN to give your opinion on ICE's border enforcement and deportation efforts. ICE agents need to hear the message that Americans like you have their backs while they face daily challenges from the liberal media. Patriots like you need to stand with ICE now more than ever. 5 minutes is all it takes, folks. Please complete the survey today at heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN to make your voice heard. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. Negative power. So this is the more aggressive form of negative power that I'm describing to you that you'll see in communist regimes, fascist regimes, autocracies, Islamist regimes. In the West, in the United States, we're dealing with what I term soft negative power. Now, soft negative power uses the techniques, the language, the approaches, and so forth that's used with negative power. But obviously, for example, in America, it's an Americanized form. So it's not the iron fist. It's not the brass knuckles. It's more elusive. It's more ambiguous. And it also is camouflaged in virtuous language, like affordability. It's camouflaged so that a people who are relatively happy about the nature of their society won't be alarmed. Unnecessarily so, you see. Because it's more elusive. Now, I want to get into this because this is how this negative power, or more specifically, soft negative power, affects us. Again, I'm just touching the surface. But if this interests you, grab your copy of On Power. Go to Amazon right now. We're in the top 100 of Amazon already. I'll be right back. The ICE protests in Los Angeles were just one example of the hatred many ICE agents are dealing with every day. As they work to enforce our nation's laws and keep our country safe, some have been ambushed, received death threats, and have been berated by the mainstream media. Now, if you support ICE, the Heritage Foundation needs your help today. Please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN right now. Fill out their survey. Heritage needs as many people as possible to participate. So if you support ICE agents, now's the time to let them know. These brave agents put their lives on the line every single day to protect our nation and to fulfill President Trump's electoral mandate. What is it? To secure the borders and deport illegal aliens who have brazenly broken our laws. Voice your opinion at heritage.org/Levin today. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Takes less than 5 minutes. Heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Mark Levin, radio's hell-raising intellectual. Call now, 877-381-3811.
Now, as you know, I don't write books on the predictable. I don't write books about myself. One book I guess I did was Rescuing Sprite. This is my 11th book. That's one book. And it wasn't even really written about the family. It was written for people who have a recent loss of a dog or a cat and so forth. But I write about institutions, ideas, philosophy, history, beliefs, and values. Each book incorporates this kind of an approach. This book takes a much different turn, and then I decided we better look at this whole issue of society, of the culture, of our future in a different light. Not through liberty or tyranny per se, although that's crucially important, but through the means by which we accomplish liberty and the means by which evil accomplishes tyranny. And people spend precious little time talking about this issue of power. Now, they're going to talk about it a lot now that I've written about it and talked about it. I can already see some people who've read the book and got early copies already want you to think how smart they are, but they're not that smart. They're just good at reading. So I was talking about negative power. This is just one aspect of it. And then I was talking about a subpart of negative power, soft negative power. And this is what affects us in the United States and in the West. This soft negative power. Marx talks about the bourgeoisie and the proletariat being the masses that rise up against the bourgeoisie being effectively the ruling class, the management class, the landlord class. As I explain in the book, there's a new bourgeoisie that doesn't have anything to do with economics per se, or materialism per se. It has to do with power. And this is why I think it's very, very important that we focus in on this word, this term, and its meaning. The new bourgeoisie is not the wealthy, although they could be wealthy. It's not about materialism, although there can be materialism. It's about power. It's not economic per se. The accumulation of power. There's some people who accumulate power like they want to, like others accumulate money, or they're hoarders. They're power hungry. And the more power they accumulate, the less power you have. So that's what I call the new bourgeoisie, a ruling class. And they don't even have to be in the government. Obviously, some do, if not many. If you look at the Democrat Party, they're pursuing the accumulation of power. When they talk about running the grocery stores, taking over the means of production, taking over the housing market system, how they're going to tax in order to empower their party, empower themselves. We're going to tax white neighborhoods more than neighborhoods of color. This is all a scheme. That's what that's about. So I call this the new bourgeoisie, these people who seek power to lord over us. They seek to be the sovereign, demigods. I call the kind of democracy that they're proposing and promoting and frankly instituting authoritarian democracy. That is, I've talked about Potemkin democracy in the past, same thing, which is you go through the motions of a small d democracy, but you really live in a more authoritarian environment. We have a fourth branch of government with 2 million people. You see how we have a court system. The courts try to protect the unelected fourth branch of government that's not in the Constitution. The lower courts that aren't even in the Constitution are using their power to protect that bureaucracy and to protect authoritarianism by using authoritarianism. They are the bourgeoisie. This is authoritarian democracy. More decisions are made by government, by the unelected, than by the elected. Authoritarian democracy. That's what's meant by that. Now, this is, as I was alluding to earlier, dressed up, camouflaged as virtuous. Now, in the book, I quote Montesquieu and I quote C.S. Lewis, both of whom talk about the fact that the people we have to fear the most as authoritarians as those who are self-righteous. They're self-righteous in what they're doing. Because there are no limits to what they'll do to you, to your fellow man, to the civil society, to the governing system, if they think what they're doing is virtuous and righteous. They're not even doing it for greed in terms of money or anything like that. They're doing it for greed in terms of power. But they delude themselves, or they at least delude their followers, into believing that it is a righteous cause, a virtuous cause. Equality, the environment, the climate, universal health care, and so forth and so on. So this is soft negative power that leads to authoritarian democracy, exercised by this new bourgeoisie. Now, folks, I'm going to leave it there. We'll talk more tomorrow about what I'll call positive power, but I have barely touched the surface on negative power. Positive power, let me just put it this way and leave you with this thought, is the opposite. Even though there's an overlap from time to time. I'll give you an example, not to be too complicated, but when you read it, you'll follow the flow of it. Sometimes soft negative power can be a positive power. Why? Well, the Constitution puts barriers in place. The separation of powers, delineating which branch can do what. Or your Bill of Rights, which delineates what powers belong to you as the individual, 10th Amendment, what belongs to the states, is federalism. And so, under those circumstances, a soft negative power is necessary in order to advance positive power. And as I say in the book, that's soft negative power, but really, in effect, it's a soft positive power. Now, that's not a crucial point, but it's just a point I like to make. Positive power relies on a totally different set of beliefs and values and principles than negative power. And once I go through this, and once you read through this, and then you understand the chapters on liberty and rights and language and so forth, and you finish the book, which is actually very readable. It's the most concise book I've ever written, and intentionally so. And I did it that way so you'll read it. You'll have a tremendous perspective on what's taking place, and you will be able to arm yourselves and your brains with the ability to promote liberty and oppose tyranny in ways that you never thought about before. We've got to change the way we discuss these things. We've got to change the way we digest these things mentally, or we're going to lose our society. I'm not opposed to fighting on economic grounds at all. I'm not opposed on fighting on the old grounds at all. What I oppose is the fact that the core issue that's on the table is essentially ignored. Like this guy, Mandani, we talk about, well, what he's proposing doesn't work. True. It's never worked. True. People will leave the city. True. He'll destroy the tax base. True. He'll destroy employment. True. Okay, now what? But we don't discuss the fundamentals of what it does to you as a human being and an individual. It destroys you as an individual, your motivation to be an entrepreneur or to be successful. It destroys merit. It destroys your investments, what you've decided to do with your intellectual and physical labor. And I go on, and I want to discuss this more because it's worse. It's worse than just an economic outcome, which is bad enough. It's an attack. It's a war on your individual humanity, on your belief system, on what the nation is founded on. And we'll get into that a little bit more tomorrow. So you get the book. It comes out on Tuesday on Power on Amazon.com. It'll be available on every major retail outlet that sells books, some that you don't expect. They will be fully supplied. I hope you'll take advantage of the pre-order. But if not, I hope you'll take advantage of the fact that the publishers work with all these retail outlets to provide them. And again, those of you who want signed copies, there's only certain ways to get them. The Reagan Library, and Saturday, August 2nd at 1 p.m. at Books and Greetings. That's located in Northvale Square, Northvale, New Jersey. This is a new location for us. We're very excited about it. The ownership's very excited. It's a beautiful family-owned independent bookstore. Again, Books and Greetings, located at Northvale Square, Northvale, New Jersey, on August 2nd, 1 p.m. And we'll have a book signing August 9th, the next Saturday at 10 a.m. Brand new Barnes & Noble, the Spectrum at Reston Town Center. It's beautiful. I've been there. In Reston, Virginia, again, August 9th, 10 a.m. Barnes & Noble, the Spectrum at Reston Town Center, Reston, Virginia. I also want to thank all the affiliates that are participating in this. I want to thank who do I thank? All the other platforms that are involved in this, Fox that's involved in this. I want to thank all of them as well. Very gracious with their time and availability. Most of all, I want to thank you. You know, the publishing business right now, book sales are way, way down. But I don't believe that's the case with you. It's never been the case with you. You're inquisitive, you want to learn as much as you can, and there's multiple ways to do it. You can listen to certain radio shows, watch certain TV shows. But reading is, as they say, fundamental. And as I develop these thoughts and develop these arguments, which I hope you'll find both compelling and intriguing and worthy of your advancement, the only real way to lay it out is in the book. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
In the last few weeks, some ICE agents have been ambushed, doxxed, received death threats. All this is on top of dealing with pushback from liberals in sanctuary cities. These ICE agents deserve a lot better. Americans like you across the country support the work they're doing, but they need to hear your voice. The Heritage Foundation has created a survey to gauge America's support of ICE agents, and they need your participation. So please go to heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/LEVIN to give your opinion on ICE's border enforcement and deportation efforts. ICE agents need to hear the message that Americans like you have their backs while they face daily challenges from the liberal media. Patriots like you need to stand with ICE now more than ever. 5 minutes is all it takes, folks. Please complete the survey today at heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN to make your voice heard. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. The issue, when it comes down to Obama and what he and members of his cabinet did to President Trump and others, was there was an effort to undermine his election and then undermine his presidency. I mean, I'm watching TV, I'm listening to legal analysts who say a lot of this information we already knew. That's not the point. A lot of this information we already knew. Here it is in black and white from the government, because the Republicans, the Trump administration, now run the government and these agencies. And so the question is whether any crimes were committed. Now, you don't need to know definitively if crimes were committed before an investigation. But if you're concerned about what took place in a significant way, that it could have undermined an election and undermined a presidency, seems to me there's precedent for an investigation. We just went through one. And that was phony. It was a fraud. It was a fake involving Donald Trump on January 6th. Here, the instrumentalities of the government were used against Donald Trump. And Barack Obama's name now comes up more than once. The point is he orchestrated it, just as I suggested he did. Jesus, what is it? over 8 years ago now, Rich, I guess? 8.5 years ago. The idea that, as I said then, that Obama didn't know what was going on right under his nose and in one or more meetings that he held in the Oval Office is preposterous. Congress has every right to subpoena him and question him as a private citizen. They had the January 6th committee, and now they can have a special committee or just their usual committees of oversight. They appointed a special counsel, aka prosecutor, to pursue Trump in the middle of an election. Obama can't run again. He's not running again. So, to me, the argument that he should be investigated is a very strong one. The downside is a very weak one, including the argument that immunity, the Supreme Court ruled, for a president doing his official duties is not subject to charges and so forth. The issue there is, and they made it clear in the opinion, but during the course of the official duties, if it is believed that they committed a crime, then that's prosecutable. But we're not at that point, are we? The point we're at is whether we launch, or they launch, a criminal investigation, which they should. And it is really precious to hear people now, particularly on the left and in the media, saying, we already knew most of this, right, Mr. Producer? Well, they already knew most of it. They knew most of it because they printed most of it, because they were collaborators. They aided and abetted. They used their news organizations to propound what was given to them by the Obama regime. That's how I figured it out. Well, everybody else was snoring, I guess, but that's how I figured it out, putting one piece together with the next. So this argument, move along, we already knew this, is not an argument at all. It's an excuse intended to whitewash this. Now, I'm going to discuss this on Saturday's Life, Liberty, and Levin. Even though it's only Wednesday, I've decided we'll bring Brett Tolman, the U.S. Attorney for Utah, on, and we will discuss this at some length. I haven't done it yet, but that's what I'm going to do. So all you other hosts out there are going to try and steal Brett. It's not going to work. Say, hell, I swim in shark-infested waters. We'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Lots to get to, and we will get to it. You've been listening to this program. You've learned about an individual you probably never heard of before. His name is Thomas Barrack, B-A-R-R-A-C-K. He is a special envoy to Lebanon. I believe that's where his ancestry is. He's from Lebanon, a Christian from Lebanon. He's a special envoy to Syria, and he's the ambassador to Turkey. And he does a lot of media, on and off the record, I fear, but a lot on the record. And he says some things that are shocking to me. Yesterday, I called for his firing. Why did I call for his firing? Because the Syrian regime, the Islamic State militants, the Bedouins are slaughtering Christians and Druze in Syria on the border with Israel. Israel has sought to defend them, and Thomas Barrack trashes Benjamin Netanyahu. Off the record and on the record. And he's not the only one. He's not the only one. And what's shocking to me, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about the slaughter of Christians and Druze who are non-Muslim Arabs. And does it sound like the world's upset to you, Mr. Producer? You don't hear anything. The United Nations, nothing. CNN, MSNBC, next to nothing. Nobody seems to be very angry about this but me. And in this Reuters piece, it says here he also pushed back against reports that Syrian security forces were responsible for violations against Druze citizens. He suggested that Islamic State group militants may have been disguised in government uniforms and that social media videos are easily doctored and therefore unreliable. Quote, he said, the Syrian troops haven't gone into the city. These atrocities that are happening are not happening by the Syrian regime troops. They're not even in the city because they agreed with Israel that they would not go in. Is he an idiot? Now, there's many public records that indicate the invisible hand and more of the Syrians that are involved. I'll read one to you now. Memri.org, MEMRI.org. It's a very public site. It's also one of the most reliable anywhere on the world. As you know, we've used it. As you know, they use interpreters to explain what's going on all over the world, in the Muslim and Arab worlds, and they have here as well. And they have a piece out. Hopefully somebody at the State Department, maybe the Secretary of State or somebody at the White House, maybe the Vice President, will hand this information to Mr. Barrack or Barrack. Coordinated and organized attacks by al-Jilani regime forces, terrorist militias, and Bedouin tribes. It starts this way, Memory does. Coordinated and organized attacks by al-Jilani regime forces, that's the new president, who was an ISIS leader in Syria. By al-Jilani regime forces, his forces, terrorist militias and Bedouin tribes attack Swaida from different sides. That's the town. Imams in their mosques called for jihad all over Syria. The violence intensified. Government forces officially entered the region. Mr. Barrack, you paying attention? Officially entered the region under the pretense of restoring order, but instead escalated the massacre and supported the non-state actors in brutality and ethnic cleansing, resulted to date in over 1,000 killed and hundreds of others wounded and abducted. Tens of thousands were displaced from their homes. Let me repeat this so even an envoy can understand it. Government forces officially entered the region under the pretense of restoring order, but instead escalated the massacre and supported the non-state actors in brutality and ethnic cleansing. And it goes on. Extrajudicial killings, civilians, including entire families, attempting to flee, were executed. By the way, an American Druze who was there to see his family from the University of Oklahoma was slaughtered, and every family member was slaughtered in the most barbaric way. Doesn't that bother anybody here? Alawat refugees, previously displaced from coastal violence, were among the victims. Sexual violence. Numerous credible reports emerged of women and girls being raped and abducted. More than 80 women and girls are still abducted. Targeted humiliation and torture. Elderly Druze men were subjected to public humiliation, including being forced to imitate animals, having their facial hair forcibly removed, and enduring torture before being executed. I told you, ladies and gentlemen, of that video that was provided to me of a younger gentleman who was thrown to his back, and a carving knife was taken out, and they literally carved, while he was alive, his heart out of his chest, and pulled the heart out of his chest and waved it around. Somebody send that to Mr. Barrack. Desecration of the dead. Bodies of the deceased were mutilated and mocked post-mortem. Video evidence shows government-aligned forces partaking in these acts. Mr. Barrack's answer is you can't rely on video evidence. Well, what's he relying on? Absolutely nothing. Nothing. And he gives these public interviews to wire services right around the world, giving effectively cover to the Syrian regime, and then trashing the Israeli military that tried to prevent this. The hell's going on here? Homes, shops, Druze shrines, and churches were systematically looted, vandalized, and or burned down. Doesn't that bother anybody? Sacred objects were defiled and destroyed in acts of sectarian symbolism. The Syrian Ministry of Defense, Army divisions, and the General Security Force are directly implicated in facilitating, endorsing, and participating in the violence, massacres, and destruction. And we have an envoy that says there's no evidence. But there's evidence everywhere. Well, you can't trust video. Despite official state media narratives portraying the conflict as a Druze-Bedouin conflict and portraying government efforts to restore order, independent documentation and footage confirm active participation of government authorities in the atrocities and ethnic cleansing. But our envoy says, no, it's not happening. Non-state actors, including Bedouin militias and jihadist groups from Horns, Idlib, and other Syrian governances, operated within impunity. Government logistical support, public endorsement, and ideological alignment between these groups and state apparatuses indicate a shared strategic and organized planning in targeting the Druze and Christian community in Zwaida. The violence in Zwaida bears clear marks of systematic sectarian persecution. The intent was not merely territorial control or conflict containment, but the dehumanization, terrorization, and eradication of a minority community. I don't even hear our State Department talking about this. I don't hear the Secretary of State talking about this. I don't hear the National Security. I don't hear anybody talking about this. Except the envoy. He's very special, apparently. He has eyes, but he can't see. He has ears, but he can't hear. The pattern, in alignment with earlier atrocities along the Syrian coast and Christians in multiple locations across Syria, proves a recurring campaign of sectarian cleansing, masked by counterinsurgency rhetoric. This ongoing event in Zwaida that started on July 14 represents a grave breach of international humanitarian law and human rights standards. They demand immediate international scrutiny, independent investigation, and accountability for those responsible, including actors. Oh boy, they have some grotesque photos. Incident reports, names of military units. They've got the goods. Somebody send this over to the State Department or to the VP's office or somewhere. Maybe the envoy. Maybe I need some left-wing media outlet, one of their reporters, to turn this over to the envoy. Maybe Mediaite or the Drudge Report or Reuters or AP. For him to make an affirmative statement that there's no evidence the Syrian government is involved is an outrage. It's scandalous. It's scandalous. And where are all my Christian brothers and sisters? Why aren't you speaking out? Some of you are. But I'm not hearing a big collective voice about this. And we should. I don't see any marching in the streets about this, do you? No, I don't. I don't hear from the river to the sea neo-Nazi crowd. I don't hear from the Hitler Youth, do you? And I've told you over and over and over again, slaughter the Jews, they'll slaughter the Christians. Slaughter the Jews and the Christians, they'll slaughter other Muslims. This is the way it works. This is the way it goes. The same mentality. This guy is ISIS. The guy who runs Syria is ISIS. He was an offshoot of Al-Qaeda. It's what he is. If he's reformed himself, he has a funny way of showing it. But it's not in our best interest to have a special envoy who's covering for him and pretending that there's no evidence of any kind implicating the Syrian government when it's all over the damn place. You got to deal with reality, especially when you're dealing in the Middle East. And it looks like we are doing democracy building, America. I mean, what other reason does this envoy have to say what he's saying? I thought we weren't doing that. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
How many times have you told someone, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Now, that's great advice for most things, but not so much for a cell phone. See, over time, the battery life fades, the processor can't keep up, and it's fallen in the toilet perhaps one too many times. Fortunately, thanks to Pure Talk, your cell phone is something you can replace without feeling guilty. When you switch to Pure Talk this month, they're going to give you a Samsung Galaxy A36 for free with a $35 qualifying plan. Wow, just $35 a month for talk, text, and data, and a free Samsung phone, the scratch-resistant Gorilla Glass, and a battery that lasts all day. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Look, supporting companies like Pure Talk is a really good thing. You win by cutting your cell phone bill in half. They win by hiring more Americans and helping more veterans. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/LEVIN to get your free phone today. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN. Switch to my wireless company, America's wireless company, Pure Talk. Ask yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, have you heard any of these podcasters talking about the slaughter in Syria of Christians and Druze and others? Hawyats? Have you? How come? How come you haven't heard a word about it? I'm serious. Have you heard any of the podcasters talk about it? No? Have you heard any of the big mouth New York Times, the Washington Post types? Barely. Why? Why is that? You know why, and so do I. It's a little perplexing, right? The Epstein story just got goosed, Mr. Producer, didn't it? Department of Justice, Associated Press, wants to interview Jeffrey Epstein's former girlfriend, Maxwell, who was convicted of helping the financier sexually abuse underage girls and is now serving a lengthy prison sentence, 20 years. Senior officials said, if Maxwell has information about anyone who has committed crimes against victims, the FBI and DOJ will hear what she has to say, Deputy Attorney General Tom Blanche said in a post on X, adding that President Trump has told us to release all credible evidence. A lawyer for Maxwell confirmed there were discussions with the government. I have a couple of questions about this. Okay. Presumably this would have been done before, no? That's number one. Presumably it would have been done weeks ago. Apparently not. That's number two. Number three. It's hard to put this story behind you when you're taking these steps now. I'm just saying it's across purposes. I'm not opposed to it in the least. In the least. I'm just worried about the future of the country. And then we got guys like Mamdani and this guy in Minneapolis and others. We got a midterm election coming up. That's what I'm worried about. The overture to attorneys for Maxwell, who in 2022 was sentenced 20 years in prison, part of an ongoing DOJ effort to cast itself as transparent. Now, this is where the media comes in. Effort to cast itself as transparent. I don't know. What did the prior regime do? Nothing? Fierce backlash from parts of the Trump base over an earlier refusal to release additional records in the Epstein investigation. There wasn't a refusal to release additional records. There was difficulty. Among other things, the problem was you've got grand jury information. You have information under seal. There was no list. Stuff like that. Then it goes on. The Department of Justice said in a two-page... All right, now it's just kicking up dust. But that's the new information. And time will tell. There's a committee also, I think an oversight committee that has just voted to get her testimony. They'll give her, I assume, blanket immunity or transactional immunity, and she'll be forced to testify. Under those circumstances, there's no Fifth Amendment protection because there's no Fifth Amendment protection that's necessary. It's free testimony, no matter what you say, even if you further indict yourself. It will have no impact criminally. So there's that. That's supposed to be a big story. We'll see what happens with that. By the way, Obama's office responded to President Trump. We'll get into this. In fact, let's do this now. Let me find my sheet here, Mr. Producer. This is the president earlier today with respect to the Russia hoax and Obama. Remember, I don't think anybody's debating that the basic facts have changed. I see that's been raised by somebody at National Review. It's being raised by left-wing lawyers, but nobody's saying that I'm aware of. I think what I'm saying and others are saying is this really is a big deal because it confirms and further expands what we know. Here's the president with the Philippine president this morning, but this involves the Russia hoax. Cut one, go.
The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold, Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up to 2020 in the election. They tried to rig the election, and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences for that. You know, when we caught Hillary Clinton, I said, you know what? Let's not go too far here. It's the ex-wife of a president, and I thought it was sort of terrible. And I let her off the hook, and I'm very happy I did. But it's time to start, after what they did to me, and whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Obama's been caught directly. So people say, oh, you know, a group. It's not a group. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. The papers are signed. The papers came right out of their office. They sent everything to be highly classified. Well, the highly classified's been released. And what they did in 2016 and in 2020 is very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level. So that's really the things you should be talking about. I know nothing about the other, but I think it's appropriate that they do go.
There you go. I think he's 100% correct. Why wouldn't we pursue this? Why shouldn't the administration, the Department of Justice, pursue this? Answer is they should. We'll be right back. How many times have you told someone, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Now, that's great advice for most things, but not so much for a cell phone. See, over time, the battery life fades, the processor can't keep up, and it's fallen in the toilet perhaps one too many times. Fortunately, thanks to Pure Talk, your cell phone is something you can replace without feeling guilty. When you switch to Pure Talk this month, they're going to give you a Samsung Galaxy A36 for free with a $35 qualifying plan. Wow, just $35 a month for talk, text, and data, and a free Samsung phone, the scratch-resistant Gorilla Glass, and a battery that lasts all day. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Look, supporting companies like Pure Talk is a really good thing. You win by cutting your cell phone bill in half. They win by hiring more Americans and helping more veterans. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/LEVIN to get your free phone today. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN. Switch to my wireless company, America's wireless company, Pure Talk.
The Mark Levin Show, the pool feed for the conservative media. Dive in now. 877-381-3811.
More from President Trump on the release of information by Tulsi Gabbard, which is very compelling to me. Cut two, go.
Tulsi Gabbard has submitted a criminal referral to the Department of Justice. From your perspective, who should the DOJ target as part of their investigation? What specific figures in the Obama administration?
Well, based on what I read, and I read pretty much what you read, it would be President Obama. He started it. And Biden was there with him, and Comey was there, and Clapper. The whole group was there. Brennan, they were all there in a room. Right here, this was the room. This is much more beautiful than it was then, but that's okay. I have nice pictures up. They came out of the vaults. They were in there for 100 years. This is much more beautiful. We have the Declaration of Independence now in the room, which wasn't here. I guess people didn't feel too good about putting it here, but I do. But you know what? If you look at those papers, they have them stone cold, and it was President Obama. It wasn't lots of people all over the place. It was them too. But the leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life. That's the one they... Look, he's guilty. It's not a question, I like to say, let's give it time. It's there. He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. They did things that nobody's ever even imagined, even in other countries. You've seen some pretty rough countries. This man has seen some pretty rough countries, but you've never seen anything like that. And we have all of the documents. And from what Tulsi told me, she's got thousands of additional documents coming.
Mm-hmm. Mike Johnson on the Christian Broadcasting Network yesterday on subpoenaing Obama. Cut 3, go.
You say there must be accountability. The DOJ will work on the criminal aspect of this. What's the role of the House here specifically? I mean,
this is our buddy David Brody. Go ahead.
They want to see depositions. They want to see whether it be Brennan, Clapper, potentially the former president of the United States. Are you willing to go down that route? Because a lot of people want to see some of these folks questioned under oath.
Of course. Look, I think we have a responsibility to follow the truth where it leads and to do it in an unbiased fashion, to do effectively the opposite of what that other team did. They're engaged in a partisan political plot to take down their foe and the other party. We need to be about the rule of law and bringing order to the chaos and searching out the truth, because the American people are owed those answers. So we have some very bright, very capable, very strong leaders at Judiciary and Oversight, Chairman Jim Jordan, Chairman Jamie Comer, and the other committees that would be involved. And I do expect that whether there's a special counsel appointed, which some are suggesting, and or in conjunction with the House investigations, that we will get the answers, and there will be accountability to the extent that we're able to do that, referring people to the DOJ for prosecution and any other measure that is appropriate as we begin to uncover more of the facts.
Not to put you on the spot, Mr. Producer, we have, and we've played twice in the history that I think of it, that March 3rd, 2017 radio program. Do you recall how many segments that's broken into off the top of your head? Can we find that one and play it in hour 3? We'll play it. Okay, so in hour 3, ladies and gentlemen, just to be consistent and roll back to the beginning of this and how I broke this story, we're going to play it. This will be the Hegseth discussion I had, which was the Sunday after the Thursday radio broadcast, but it was fairly fulsome nonetheless. And you'll see the extent of which this was taking place. All this effort to downplay this now. There were incredible numbers of leaks. And I believe I say during that interview with Hegseth that Obama knows all about it. And I was asked, how do you know? Isn't that the one, Mr. Producer? I said, because it's in the press. Right? How can you miss it? You read it. So we'll play that in hour 3 if you want to hang around with us. And in fact, let me see here. Stick with me, America. Stick with me. Let's see. Does that? Yeah. If your affiliate doesn't carry hour 3, if there's a preemption or whatever, you can hear hour 3. Just go to your favorite podcast platform and go to Mark Levin Show. Or you can hear us on YouTube. Also, you can just go to YouTube and, again, search for Mark Levin Show. Or you can go online, really, with almost any of our affiliates and hear it that way as well. There's many ways to hear it, but I think you'll want to hear this in the context of what took place. We laugh here because we kind of broke this thing, and Breitbart was in on it too, and they're a great website, and I'm watching all this coverage. Nowhere do they mention this Mark Levin radio show on Westwood One, and nowhere do they mention Breitbart. And that's how this whole thing began. That's how the whole thing began. Many of you were here when it happened. Well, of course, the Democrats are not interested in any of that. You got this guy, Jason Crow, Democrat, Colorado, and he got elected because he served in the military. And they want you to think he's some kind of moderate or conservative. He's a radical left-wing kook. I judge these guys based on what they're doing to the country now. Their past service is commendable, honorable, and we salute them for it. It's what they're doing to the country today that we condemn. And so They're all lined up. They all want to reject this. Here's an example from this guy, Jason Crow, Democrat, Colorado. Cut 4, go.
Well, listen, this what's actually going on here is pretty clear. You have Tulsi Gabbard, who's been out of favor with President Trump since the intelligence agency issued.
He's got a whole conspiracy. So Gabbard's releasing it to get back in Trump's favor, and they're releasing it to distract from Epstein case. They don't want to look at the substance. They blow it off as, we know all this already, and that's the end of that. Go ahead.
The Iran strike that were not consistent with what Donald Trump was saying. So she's been in hot water.
The Iran strike is not consistent with what Donald Trump's been saying. These people are diabolical. They're just evil. That's all they are. I mean, Biden funded the Iran nuclear program. The Democrats and the isolationist con men in our country, they didn't want Trump to even hit those sites, and now they're complaining that it wasn't done well enough. Go ahead.
Back into favor. And then you have a president in President Trump who wants people to talk about anything other than the Epstein investigation, which he is very, very clearly worried about, the release of the Epstein file.
I thought a few months ago it was egg prices. That was their focus, their obsession. Then it was Doge. Then it was the big, beautiful bill. Now it's Epstein. Sounds to me they want to discuss anything but Mamdani. Mamdani, remember him? Go ahead.
So what's happening is Tulsi Gabbard's trying to work his way back into the...
shut up, you moron. You got a whole thing you're spinning there. But, of course, I blame it on the reporters. I blame it on them for not asking tough questions on CNN. Just hold up one of the documents. Read from one of the documents. Force this clown to answer one of the documents. But they won't do that in the media, and they're not going to do it. They play along. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
How many times have you told someone, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Now, that's great advice for most things, but not so much for a cell phone. See, over time, the battery life fades, the processor can't keep up, and it's fallen in the toilet perhaps one too many times. Fortunately, thanks to Pure Talk, your cell phone is something you can replace without feeling guilty. When you switch to Pure Talk this month, they're going to give you a Samsung Galaxy A36 for free with a $35 qualifying plan. Wow, just $35 a month for talk, text, and data, and a free Samsung phone, the scratch-resistant Gorilla Glass, and a battery that lasts all day. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Look, supporting companies like Pure Talk is a really good thing. You win by cutting your cell phone bill in half. They win by hiring more Americans and helping more veterans. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/LEVIN to get your free phone today. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN. Switch to my wireless company, America's wireless company, Pure Talk. You're not going to want to miss hour 3 because we're going to play some of the foundational activity that took place in order to get us to a point today where Tulsi Gabbard got this information out, and I salute her for it. I really do. What she did is very, very important. And all the downplaying and all the rest, just blow it off. Just ignore it. It's politics or it's never Trumpers or whatever it is. It just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It's a funny thing, as you'll see. When I first came out with this information based on public reports, which were based on leaks from within the Obama administration, from the FBI and the Department of Justice, from the CIA and other intel operations, actually from the Department of Defense and perhaps even from the White House. When I pulled it together and began talking about it, it was all dismissed. And now that there's these reports that Tulsi Gabbard's putting out, the National Deputy Intelligence Officer, the director, it's dismissed. There should be no more dismissals. There should be a full-scale criminal investigation to see what, if anything, can be done about it. And So we're going to play not the radio breaking of it on the 3rd, although I do think we have that, Rich. You may not have it handy, but we did play that, as I recall. No? At one point? That's right. We did it as a best of once. But we will play the Hegseth interview. I hope we have enough there. I think we do. I think I went through like 11 exhibits, but I think it's more than 6-7 minutes. And I remember when that took place. I was supposed to do, 6-7 minute hit, as they say. I was at my desk at Blaze. It wound up being like 18 or 20 minutes. And they busted through their commercials. And I don't know that we do because we're doing this cold, but I hope we have the part in there where I'm asked if I think Obama knows anything about this. And I said, of course he does. It's in the newspaper. All he has to do is read it. So in other words, even without knowledge that he was orchestrating everything, although we figured that out about a week or two later, he wouldn't have had to, because I found it in the newspaper, which means he saw it in the newspaper, which means he had to know about it. It's his government that's doing all the leaking, different aspects of his government. And so this should be criminally investigated, in my view, and hopefully it will be. As far as the Epstein thing goes, the department will do what the department does. I suspect Maxwell's been interviewed many, many times before. I don't know what's going to come out of it. I think they're just trying to demonstrate, perhaps, what do I know, that they're being very thorough about it. But that said, I don't know what people expect to come out of it. I don't know what will come out of it. Look, what comes out, we'll report. But the hysteria around it and the claims of cover-up and everything else were just BS. Just BS, in my view. So, and by the way, you can bet if this situation had happened in the Trump administration with the Trump FBI, I'm not talking about Epstein, I'm talking about this Obama stuff, with the Trump CIA and everything, you better believe this would be the scandal of the century, or the scandal of the Republic. The Democrats wouldn't let go of it. It just shows you the disparate treatment, the disparate approach to these things, which is really quite troubling. And it involves the FBI. Now, what I'm hoping, and I touched on this yesterday, is that they'll also take a look at the documentation behind the effort to take out Trump the second time around. See if they can determine if anything was destroyed, if there was any obstruction, any violations of the Presidential Records Act, any violation of the Espionage Act. I mean, this is when you do it. Now. And I think they ought to look into this in addition to the other, and I think I'll be mentioning that more and more. So we shall see how this plays out. But we know the Democrats, no matter what happens, they circle the wagons. Like this guy, Jason Crow, who's got it all figured out. He's got all the conspiracies figured out. He has no interest in anything whatsoever. We have this guy, this Iranian foreign minister, Abbas Yabba Dabba Do. He says, look, we're going to keep pursuing enriched nuclear uranium. This is our program, which, by the way, proves the isolationist con men, the de-influencers, to be complete phonies. Oh, they're not really pursuing anything dangerous. So take a listen to this. Here he is with Brett Baer. Cut 7, go.
What is the extent of the damage to the nuclear enrichment program after these attacks?
Well, our facilities have been damaged, seriously damaged, the extent of which is now under evaluation by our Atomic Energy Organization. But as far as I know, they are seriously damaged.
Did the already enriched material survive? Is it accessible?
Well, I have no detailed information.
It's a good question, though. Good try. That's a good try on that one. There's more from this guy. We'll get to that later as well. Got a big hour ahead of us, hour 3. We'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. We have a little treat for you. Tulsi Gabbard, as you know, released information she has more to release on the effort to destroy the Trump campaign and then the Trump presidency early on by the Obama regime. But you first heard about it from me. I didn't have what she has access to, but I did have the public reports, and it became clear that people within the administration, the White House, the FBI, the CIA, etc., were in fact leaking information to the media. And it occurred to me as I was going through it, I started to pull it together. I saw a pattern, and you're about to hear, as I discussed it on Fox for the first time on March 5th, 2017. And when I first spoke about this, it was on radio on March 3rd, 2017. But here we go with Pete Hegseth and me. Cut 21, 22, 23, go.
On your Thursday evening radio broadcast, you laid out a devastating case about executive overreach of the Obama administration, which many believe metamorphosized itself to tweets that President Trump sent out on Saturday morning accusing potential wiretapping in Trump Tower. We want to give you a case here this morning to lay out what you know about it, and the evidence you have for the potential executive overreach of the Obama administration.
Well, pleasure to be here. The evidence is overwhelming. This is not about President Trump's tweeting. This is about the Obama administration's spying. And the question isn't whether it's spied. We know they went to the FISA court twice. The question is, who did they spy on? The extent of the spying. That is, the Trump campaign, the Trump transition, Trump surrogates. And I want to walk you through this, the American people. Exhibit 1. Exhibit 1. This is all public. Head Street. 2 separate sources with links to the counterintelligence community have confirmed that the FBI sought and was granted a Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act court. This is spying. In October, giving counterintelligence permission to examine the activity of, quote, U.S. persons in Donald Trump's campaign with ties to Russia. Let me go on. This isn't me. They say the first FISA request, sources say, named Trump, was denied back in June, denied by the court. Mm-hmm. But the second was drawn more narrowly and was granted in October after evidence was presented of a server possibly related to the Trump campaign and its alleged links to 2 banks. Now, sources suggest that a FISA warrant was granted to look at the full content of emails and other related documents that may concern U.S. persons. Now, I know people are hung up with Trump's word wiretapping. Well, how'd they get access to this server information? Does it really matter if it was wiretapping, electronic surveillance, or whatever it was? Exhibit 2, The Guardian, a well-known right-wing British paper. Here it is, quote, The Guardian has learned the FBI applied for a warrant from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court over the summer in order to monitor 4 members of the Trump team suspected of irregular contacts with Russian officials. Keep in mind, this is during a presidential election. The sitting president, the incumbent party, is now investigating the presidential candidate of the Republican Party and his campaign to some extent. The FISA court turned down the application asking FBI counterintelligence investigators to narrow its focus. According to one report, the FBI was finally granted a warrant in October. Exhibit 3, McClatchy, another well-known right-wing newspaper. Here they have the agencies. Headline, FBI, 5 other agencies, 5 other Obama administration agencies probe possible covert Kremlin aid to Trump. The FBI and 5 other law enforcement intelligence agencies have collaborated for months in an investigation into Russian attempts to influence the November election, including whether money from Kremlin covertly aided presidential-elect Donald Trump. 2 people familiar with the matter said the agencies involved in the inquiry are the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the Justice Department, the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, and representatives of the Director of the National Intelligence. Are you telling me Barack Obama didn't know what was going on in 6 agencies?
As you go on, how are you? Okay, keep going.
I'm not done. I need to make the case because the media seems to be confused about their own reporting. New York Times, another well-known liberal outlet, intercepted Russian communications, part of inquiry into Trump associates, January 19. The FBI is leading the investigations, aided by the NSA, the CIA, Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Unit. The investigators have accelerated their efforts in recent weeks, but have found no conclusive evidence of wrongdoing. Listen to this. One official said intelligence reports based on some of the wiretap communications have been provided to the White House. This is the New York Times,
another
my
right-wing
Exhibit
outlet.
4.
Another right-wing outlet.
Let's continue. New York Times again. NSA gets more latitude to share intercepted communications. In the final days of the Obama administration, the administration has expanded the power of the NSA to share globally intercepted personal communications with the government's 16 other intelligence agencies before applying privacy protections. Now, why would they do this on the way out the door? Well, March 1, Exhibit 6. Obama administration rushed to preserve intelligence of Russian election hacking. In the Obama administration's last days, listen to this, some White House officials scrambled to spread information about Russian efforts to undermine the presidential election and about possible contacts between associates of President-elect Trump and Russians across the government. I'm not done. Exhibit 7, New York Times. Flynn is said to have talked to Russians about sanctions Trump took office. Well, where'd they get this information? Well, Mark, you know, the FISA court, they're always monitoring the Russian ambassador and so how do we know that? Maybe they are, maybe they're not, but there's an awful lot of other activity. Sure. Here we have Washington Post, one more, Washington Post, March 2nd. U.S. investigators have examined contacts Attorney General Sessions had with Russian officials during the time he was advising Donald Trump's campaign. The focus of the U.S. counterintelligence investigation has been on communication between Trump campaign officials in Russia. Listen to this. The inquiry involving Sessions is examining his contacts while serving as Trump's foreign policy advisor in the spring and summer of 2016. This has been going on for a year.
As you do on your radio program, you lay out a devastating case based on public documents, as you point out, and not right-wing sources, but mainstream left-stream sources. How confident are you that this investigation, which was on so-called Russian hacking, but now the White House says this morning will be broadened to looking into executive overreach, how confident are you they will find something there?
I don't know, but they already found something. The issue isn't whether the Obama administration spied on the Trump campaign or transition or certain of its surrogates. The issue is the extent of it. They went into court a second time. They were so aggressive. They waited 4 or 5 months. They go back in October, weeks before the general election. They narrow their request. All of a sudden, we have leaks coming out on Flynn. Then we have a horrible meeting that took place between Sessions and so forth. And I'm telling you, as a former chief of staff to an attorney general of the United States, in the Reagan administration, these are police state tactics. Now, what did Barack Obama know? He knew everything I just read to you apart from 1 or 2 articles. You know how I know? It's in the newspapers. It's right there. So Barack Obama not only knew this, but he gets a daily intelligence briefing. And let me tell you something about daily intelligence briefings. If your attorney general and your FBI is going to the FISA court to get a warrant to investigate aspects of an opposition party in the middle of a general election campaign, how much you want to bet the President of the United States knew that?
I don't want to bet you on that.
Read his opinion.
How does this play out in the media? How are they going to continue to cover this story?
Let me first say this is the case made by the New York Times, the Washington Post, McClatchy, and the rest of them. I just put it together as a former Justice Department official. And Donald Trump here is being attacked for what he tweeted. Donald Trump is the victim. His campaign is the victim. His transition team is the victim. His surrogates are the victim. These are police state tactics. I am telling you this as a former chief of staff to an attorney general. If this had been done to Barack Obama, all hell would break loose. And it should. And Barack Obama's statement is pathetic.
Mark?
Let me just say this. Where does it go from here? They ought to release both FISA court applications where they sought the warrant. The one in the summer and the one in October. So we know exactly what they were doing. That's number one. Number two, Congress needs to see the daily presidential intelligence briefings over the past year or so. Those are the beginnings of a serious investigation. Number three, for the Republicans in Congress, you control the majority. If the Democrats do not want to assist, and they won't, because I'm starting to think Chuck Schumer and the others are participating in all this cover-up activity, then plow ahead without them. But this is important to the country. We cannot have a sitting presidential administration unleashing 6 federal agencies, intelligence and law enforcement. I don't mean the president personally sitting there and saying, you know what, Valerie, let's go get him. Obviously, the Attorney General and the FBI were involved in this. This is how you get a FISA court application prepared and submitted.
Do you think former President Obama was involved in this? And if so, how much was he involved?
I'm not Nostradamus here. I just think that we ought to find out. But I will tell you this. He's more involved than he says. I mean, it's his executive branch. It's his Justice Department. Mine's for the IRS. All of a sudden, the IRS is targeting American citizens. I don't know anything about it. We have reporters, including James Rose in the AP, where the Obama administration did more investigations of reporters than any administration in American history. They're quite capable of these things. But it doesn't matter. We want to know what took place, and there ought to be public hearings on this stuff, too. I agree with the Democrats. Let's get to the bottom of this. So join me. Join us. This is the public record. Yeah. It's the newspaper of record, the New York Times. Let's go.
Well, there you have it. I'm back live. Look, all the particulars weren't 100% accurate, but don't blame me. That was the media. But most of it is accurate, and most of it points to what they tried to do to Donald Trump. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Now, look, everything there wasn't perfect, but again, don't blame me. I was just going from public records, and it became obvious. The Thursday before, I did it on the radio show, and they asked me to come on Sunday, and I did it. And Hannity asked me to come on the next Monday, meaning the next night, which, of course, I did, and was off to the races. But here, we have additional information, more accurate information, information that comes right out of the government's files, which is very, very important. So I'll see if Fox will let me play the segment on Saturday with Hegseth and me. They should. I mean, it's their material. And then the second half of the monologue, as I finish it, I will update with the information that's released by Gabbard to bring it full circle. And I should mention, Friday night on Hannity, he will be interviewing me as they kick off to my new book on power for one segment. And he will also be interviewing me for the entire hour on Sunday, where we'll go through the book in some detail. It's one of the reasons I'm encouraging you to pre-order it now and grab it so it shows up for you. It comes out next Tuesday, officially. And we have every major radio host and platform that we can think of. They've contacted us, we've contacted them, and it's been very, very positive. So we're very excited about that. And look, we'll see what happens. Again, the goal is to really try and impact the way we approach these issues, the way we think about them in a more effective way, in my view. And that's what I was thinking about. And just so you know, and I had this 100% tear in my tendon in my right knee, or above the right knee. I don't recommend that to anybody. And I was bedridden for about 2.5 months. And I couldn't even sit up to write this book. But I thought about a lot of what I was going to put in the book during that period of time without taking notes, without even penning anything. And just so you know, even though I was absent from radio and TV for 2 or 3 weeks, in order to do both, my executive producer for my Fox show and my Blaze show, and the assistant producer, they both literally, Mr. Producer, had to lift me out of the bed and put me in a wheelchair. You remember that, Rich? And they had to roll me behind the desk for the TV show and my Blaze show, and then roll me behind another desk to do radio. And honestly, it was so painful, as you folks who listened in must know, I might have done an hour or 2 hours, and then I had to go back to the bed. Because just the way the leg, was sitting and hanging, and I couldn't stand up on it. It was very crazy. But we get through it. Get through most things, or you try to anyway. All right, let's kick in here. Let's keep going. We've got this Iranian foreign minister on Fox News, where Brett Baer, we cannot give up our nuclear enrichment, which, of course, gives the lie to all the defenders of this regime over the years, even over the last few weeks. Well, they're not really out there to do it. Yes, they were, and they still are. Well, we can't have regime change. Look, I favored regime change. I think the phrase is stupid. Either you defeat the enemy or you're done. When you defeat the enemy, it's regime change. I'm not looking to create a democracy out of it. The regime must be defeated. And it will have to be defeated one day or another. Whether it's a year from now or 10 years from now. But here's Abbas Yabba, the Iranian foreign minister. Cut 8. Go.
Does Iran plan to reconstitute its enrichment program? Is it continuing now, or has the damage been so severe that it is all stopped?
Good question.
It is now stopped because, yes, damages are serious and severe. But obviously, we cannot give up our enrichment because it is an achievement of our own scientists. And now, more than that, it is a question of national pride. Our enrichment is so dear to us. We are ready to engage into negotiation to make sure that our enrichment is only for peaceful purposes.
National pride. First of all, the vast majority of the population there lives in basically what is a prison country. It's what it is, a police state. National pride. And it's more police state today than it's ever been since the early part of the revolution. They're rounding up people, killing people, torturing, interrogating people at a level they haven't seen since that original takeover of the regime there. So that's one thing when they go, oh, it's national pride. The other thing is the propaganda that they only want it for civilian purposes. We know what's there. It's not for civilian purposes. You don't bury your centrifuges in a mountain that takes two of the most massive bombs short of nuclear weapons to take out for civilian purposes. Not last time I checked. Is that what your local utility does, America? No, of course not. So this was all intended for military purposes. It's still intended for military purposes, just like their ICBM, the Intercontinental Ballistic Missile Program, is intended for military purposes, not peaceful purposes. There are no other purposes. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, radio's principal patriot. Call in now at 877-381-3811.
All right, let's go to some callers. Bardia, Dallas, Texas, the great WBAP. Yes, sir.
I just want to talk to you about that. You mentioned about enriching uranium. Mm-hmm. These people are lying right and left. Amen. Because they try to cover everything up. I usually monitor the news from back home, and we have.
You're from Iran. I just want people to know. Go right ahead.
Okay.
When you say back home, I just want them to know where you're monitoring. You're monitoring what's going on in Iran, which is good.
And what's happening here, I hear like earthquake here and there, and I'm pretty sure what they're doing, they're testing this stuff under the ground. And we even have an ancient building from 1,500 years ago, which we never had an earthquake there. They destroyed it because we had the earthquake over there. So that's pretty much obvious that these people are lying. And
even without that, it's obvious to me they're lying. I mean, you don't, as I said, you don't build centrifuges for civilian use so deep down into the ground and into the side of a mountain that you need these unbelievable bombs in order to take them out. That's not where you put civilian nuclear power. And not only that, Bardia, the Europeans could have looked at it, the UN inspectors could have looked at it, the United States could have looked at it and seen if they'd shown us and say, see, this is what we have, it's for civilian use. I mean, it's pretty apparent if it is or it isn't. So it was a cover-up. This is what they've been doing, and they're liars. They're terrorists.
The Bushehr reactor, that was in the Shah time built only for power, like electricity.
Right.
And I think, if I remember right, it was U.S. and Germany, France, they all bet to build it. And I think either Germany or France got the bid and they built it. It was almost ready in 79 to work to give electricity. Mm-hmm. And these people were against that time. There is a newspaper, they were accusing Shaw to do this and that, but now they just want to do the same thing. And
all right, Bardia, thank you, my friend. Appreciate you very much. Let's go to Mark, Chico, California, Sirius XM satellite. How are you, Mark?
I'm good, Mark. I got your book coming.
Beautiful.
And I'm hoping that that there's some suggestion in regards to the Obama, the whole FISA thing.
The book is not written about Obama and FISA, okay? The book is written about subject matter that's a little bit more lasting and involved and substantive. It's not about Obama. It's not about Clinton. It's not about any of that stuff. So if you're looking for that, that's not this book.
No, the subtext is that it's power. And we're seeing that now with Tulsi today. With I guess Obama issued a denial. I agree completely that I've been watching this for 10 years, that the FISA court, Carter Page, the Klein-Smith, McCabe, Comey.
And there have been many books written on it, too. You should know that, too, right?
My question is, how do we convince or impress upon the American people the astonishing departure from the rule of law that we now understand? And I don't care what people say, you're an old white guy, Mark Levin, he's crazy. It's pretty clear this has happened.
Is that what they're saying?
Right today.
Yeah. How do we convince people what? I'm sorry.
So, I want to know the average American. If I went to the mall tonight and I talked to people, I said, look, what's going on in America? They wouldn't know. They don't understand the McCabe, Strzok. Those people were all dirty, regardless of your political affiliation. They ruined Carter Page's life.
Well, you're asking a very complicated question. That's why you're asking it, I guess. We don't control the educational system. We don't control the media. We don't control the culture. So how do we make sure the guy that's in the mall understands everything that we understand? I guess the best thing you can do is turn him towards conservative media, legitimate, principled conservative media, and suggest that they listen to that, because we don't have 20 years to sit down with each person and re-educate them about everything and anything. And I have to be honest with you, this would be one of the subjects, but if we had the chance to do that, I'd pick other subjects. I wouldn't be passing McCabe and so forth, even though that's important. There's more fundamental things that lead to the rot of the McCabes and so forth and so on, that are basically the entrails of the decline. So I might focus on something other than that. All right, Mark, going to keep rolling. Thank you, sir. Dick, Dayton, Ohio, on Sirius XM. Go right ahead, please.
How you doing, Mark? I listened
okay,
to the
buddy.
first. Good. I love it, man. You said a lot in the first part of your show, and when I was thinking about, the power, and you were talking about the isms like Shiism, how it destroys socialism, and that, and I think, Mark, power is very, I thought always that negative power, and then your positive power, negative means probably zero effect. Now, positive means we are thinking ahead.
No. Look, maybe you have a different view of it. The way I explain it is the way I explain it. That negative power has negative consequences. Doesn't mean it has zero effect. It's not a mathematical equation. It is negative in the sense of its outcome to a society. And positive is positive to the effect of its outcome in a society. As I say, when the book comes out, we can get into this in more detail. Maybe you have a different way of approaching it. That's perfectly fine for basically saying the same thing. All right, let's continue. Mike, Walled Lake, Michigan. Go right ahead, please.
Good evening, Mr. Levin. This is Mike from the Islamic State of Michigan.
Pretty much.
Bless you. God bless you for what you do God bless our president for what he has done and is doing daily. And also the Prime Minister of Israel, God bless him as well. And I have a device that I use that reads for me all of the books that you have done, and it was manufactured in Israel, created in Jerusalem, and it reads for me beautifully. And what has been going on going back to 2006.
Now it reads for you. Do you not have sight, or?
I do not have sight. No, I have a genetic eye disease, but it reads for me, and
wonderful.
Yeah, it is. It's wonderful, and the people in Jerusalem created it, and it's an Orcam device, and it reads for me beautifully. I do have some talking books, which are fine, but this device reads for me. It reads the mail for me and everything. But what's been going on in Washington,
Can you imagine if those people, rather than having to spend so much brain power and resources to defend themselves in wars, if they were free just to develop things for humankind, I mean, it would be earth-shattering in a positive way.
The people of Israel, technology-wise, are just spectacular, and just look what they have done to Iran and how they led the way for the United States and America to do what they did to get the path opened up to destroy the nuclear issues going on that were going there and what they were trying to develop.
You make a good point. If Israel hadn't taken out those radar sites, those ground-to-air missile systems, and so much, it would have been very difficult for us to hit those nuclear sites.
Pathway, and probably there'll be more paths to be opened in the future. But what's been going on in Washington, all that stuff was treasonous going back 2016, and the whole administration back in the Obama era, and also the Joe Biden era, all that's treasonous nonsense. It's both administrations, Obama and the Joe Biden. That's all.
And Biden had a lot of Obama people in his administration, so there is that.
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. And what you do 7 days a week, my friend, holy cow! It's just it's mind-boggling, Mr. Levin, what you do on a daily basis, and the people that step forward to assist you in what you do on a daily basis, 7 days a week. It's just unbelievable. And I
thank you for them.
Oh, bless you, my friend.
They're good people. Aren't you, Rich? You're good people. Rich is not listening.
I understand.
Oh, yeah. We're eating a steak sandwich. What are you doing? All right, brother. Thank you. And don't hang up. We're going to send you, whether you use it or not, an audio version of On Power when it comes out in a week or so. So please don't hang up. Let's see here. Do I owe you something, Mr. Producer? All right. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Don't forget to run over to Amazon.com and grab your pre-order copy before it comes out on Tuesday of On Power. It's very well discounted there. It's under $20 for the book. That's a very good value, and I want you to take advantage of it. Let's go to Chuck in Loris, South Carolina, the great WRNN. Chuck, how are you, my friend?
Pretty good. Thank you for taking my call, Mark.
Thank you, sir.
I wanted to talk about the Epstein files because the Democrats had control of these things from 2019 till about 3 months into Trump's presidency. If anything was going to disappear or anything was going to be deleted or any other information was blacked out, it's them. They're trying to protect themselves or Democrat donors. And I'm aware of that, but not enough people are screaming about it. They pretend that they're concerned about them now, but it's just a talking point. It's just another gaslight to string things out and try to damage whatever Trump's trying to do.
And you're right on. You're 100% right. And all the great things he's doing, they hope it'll be drowned out. That's why I I look at people who claim to support him, who are stabbing him in the back with this stuff. I said, do you understand you're undermining the president and his program, and you might be undermining the midterm elections. You're playing right into the Democrats' hands, and that's exactly what Trump means. Okay, so maybe a couple of names will pop out that we weren't expecting and so forth. Okay, fine. Let them pop out. But by God, we have a republic to save. And you make a great point. This was in their hands for years and years and years. And so we'll see. But I would suspect if anything's in there that's going to damage one of their big boys, they're not going to put it out, right?
Exactly. And if there was anything in there that would damage Trump,
it would have been put out.
With the kitchen sink.
Yeah, no, you're right. It would have been put out because, they were trying to stop him from being president. They did all this stuff with the criminal justice system. They distorted it. And even the civil system. Why would they hold back anything in those files? So you're right. From both perspectives, it just seems weird. But
and
okay.
One last thing. Hillary said it best. If she got taken down, she'd have taken half of Washington with her, and I assume they would be Democrats.
Yeah, you're probably right. Chuck, good call, man. You know what? Don't hang up. We're going to give you a copy of On Power when it comes out, signed, so don't hang up. We'll get your address. I'm sorry for those other people who called. I actually hadn't thought about it. I would have done that as well. But obviously, I can't hand out 1 million copies. So if you're interested in getting it at a very good value right now at Amazon.com, tonight's the night to do it, as far as I'm concerned. And there's a lot of good stuff in here. Tomorrow we're going to we touched a little bit on negative power and soft negative power. And tomorrow, I think in the first hour, unless something's really slamming away, we'll touch a little bit on positive power. And what that's all about, and why this thinking process is very, very important. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truck drivers, the men and women in Ukraine, the men and women in Israel, and those people in Syria who are being slaughtered. We stand with you, too, despite the fact we have a moron, apparently, as an envoy. And you, the American people, God bless each and every one of you. See you tomorrow.